Hi, Alan Stratton from Wood Turns. At the Utah Woodturning Symposium, one of the demonstrators was Benoit Averly. Subsequently, our club challenged us to make a box similar to ones that Benoit made. Well, I didn't exactly copy him. In fact, I never want to exactly copy. I want to make it my style. But his style is a highly textured, tall lid box with a short base and then a finial. So for mine, I decided to make the short base and texture it, but I decided to wood burn it for the texturing and then use dye for a little bit of color. I didn't want his typical jet black. And then a little bit different finial from what I've made before. So this box will be the topic of this video, but meanwhile, don't forget we have a sphere challenge going on, and it's for newbies to make your first sphere and show it off. For experienced people, strut your stuff. So remember to turn your sphere and enter it into the sphere challenge. You have till the end of July. But for now, let's make this little box.
For this project, I'm using a maple baseball bat billet. I've cut off a chunk a little longer than what I think I need and mounted it in my deep shark jaws for a little rounding off and to cut a tenon. As soon as possible, I'm reversing the wood to mount with my tenon. With just a little rounding off, I'm cutting a tenon on the other end. I'll need that tenon later after I separate the top from the bottom. So next I'm shaping the wood to mimic the shape that Benoit Averly seems to use a lot. This is primarily gouge work. Despite it being a spindle, I'm using my bowl gouge. Then part off the two sections, leaving the majority in the top section. I have to be sure to back off the live center before cutting completely through the wood. Otherwise, the wood will bind with bad effects. Now I have the top portion mounted in the chuck. I'm cleaning up the center to prepare to drill out some of the center. I'm marking the desired depth on my handheld long drill bit. I had a little trouble getting the drill started due to the tool rest being too high and still a bump in the center. Once corrected, then I get the hole finished very quickly. Then on to hollowing out the center. I finally switched to a spindle gouge for most if not all the hollowing. For spindle work, this method works very well. But now I need to form a good straight-sided mortise in the end. This is better with a box scraper. I check for straightness by holding a pencil against the mortise and comparing it to the lathe ways. After a couple of adjustments, the sides are straight. Next, I'm remounting the bottom portion. It does not take long to hollow out this shallow portion. Then on to cut a tenon to fit the mortise in the lid. For now, I want a tight fit. Later, I'll cut it back a bit more to make it loose. I don't want anyone having to pick up the entire box to open the lid. After that, I put the two pieces together again to refine the overall shape. Then cut away the original mounting tenon on the lid portion. While the top is still square, I'm drilling a 1/4 inch hole through the top to use to mount a finial. Then finish shaping before sanding up through the grits. I debated a while over how to decorate this box. I decided on 4 spirals from pyrography bands. Benoit Averly did a lot of texture work. I'll use the brand for texture. To lay out, I drew 4 lines using the tool rest along the length of the box. Then by eye, drew circumference lines to divide the box into somewhat equal sections. Finally, I drew a curve from the intersections to the opposite intersection. For wood burning, I'm using a do-it-yourself vaporizer patterned after Graham Priddle's. It is a Harbor Freight battery charger with a lot of parts stripped out. Essentially, in buying a battery charger, I purchased a big transformer, a case, and some spare parts. I did a video a couple of years ago. The brand is one I made at Molly Winston's direction from Nikon wire. I'm holding the brand in a do-it-yourself pen made from PVC, some connectors, some brass rod. Again, I made a video on this a couple of years ago. With wood burning completed, I'm sanding the wood again with a fine grit to remove scorching and smooth off the surface. Now with the lid complete, I'm trimming the tenon to make a loose fit between the bottom and the lid. Next, I'm wrapping masking tape on the tenon to protect it from the chuck jaws for the next step of refining the base. After sanding, I'm signing the bottom. But first, I have to switch from the brand which has cooled and a ball tip that I use for signing. Then a light fine sand. For coloring the box, I'm mounting the lid on the bit that I use to drill for the finial and put my live center in the headstock. Either way would have been the same. After aligning the lid to the base, I'm using the Richeson atomizer to spray on streaks of red and yellow. With this blend, I get an orange color between the red and the yellow. I kind of like it. I applied black dye to the inside, the tenon, the mortise, and the bottom. When it was dry, I sprayed it with rattle can lacquer. Now for the finial. I found a walnut scrap that should look nice and shaped it like a candelabra bulb with a 1/4-inch tenon on the bottom. I formed the tenon with some cheap end wrenches that I sharpened. Then after a trip to the bandsaw to cut away some of the walnut, I'm using my 2-inch right angle carver with a rasp cutter to shape the finial. I followed this up with hand sanding. For a finish, I applied thin CA glue to the finial, let it dry, then sanded it back with a finer grit. I'm hoping the CA will give a little strength to the weak short grain in the walnut. I repeated the CA several times until the surface was smooth and glossy. Finally, I'm buffing out the box for a little more shine. I like my box and its unique style. The joint is for an ordinary person, not for woodturners. In other words, the top comes off with one hand. The colors blended well, and the pyrography was enough texture for my taste. We'll see what the others have done for the challenge. This box was fun. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, tell your friends, and send me your comments and questions. Every week I make a new wood turning video. Please wear your full face shield. Goggles are not enough protection. Until next week's video, this is Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns.